The morning of September 15, 2023, started like any other day at Chicago's Union Station. Commuters rushed through the grand halls, coffee cups in hand, checking their phones for train schedules. The autumn sun streamed through the towering windows, casting long shadows across the marble floors where thousands of feet shuffled in their daily dance of urban life. Detective Sarah Mitchell adjusted her radio as she walked her usual patrol route through the station. At 34, she had been with the Chicago Transit Authority Police for 8 years, but today felt different somehow. Maybe it was the crisp fall air, or maybe it was the new addition to her patrol team, a 4-year-old German Shepherd named Rex. Rex wasn't just any police dog. He was a highly trained explosive detection canine, fresh out of the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Georgia. His nose could detect trace amounts of explosives that electronic equipment might miss. His deep brown eyes were alert and intelligent, constantly scanning the environment for anything out of place. "Come on, boy," Sarah whispered as they made their way toward Platform 7, where the 8:15 a.m. express to Milwaukee would be boarding in 20 minutes. Rex's ears perked up, his tail wagging slightly. He loved his work, and Sarah could tell he was eager to get started. The station was busier than usual. A major business conference was taking place downtown, and the morning rush was heavier with out-of-town visitors trying to navigate the Chicago transit system. Sarah noticed families with suitcases, business professionals scrolling through presentations on their tablets, and the usual mix of daily commuters who barely looked up from their phones. Near the information booth, an elderly woman struggled with a large suitcase. Sarah was about to help when Rex suddenly stopped dead in his tracks. His entire body went rigid, his nose lifted high into the air. Sarah had seen this behavior before, during training, but never in the field. Her heart rate quickened. "What is it, boy?" she whispered, following Rex's gaze across the crowded terminal. Rex's training kicked in immediately. His nostrils flared as he processed the complex cocktail of scents that filled Union Station every day: coffee, perfumes, cleaning supplies, food from the various vendors. But there was something else, something that didn't belong. It was faint, almost masked by the overwhelming sensory environment. But his specialized training made it stand out like a beacon: the scent of ammonium nitrate, mixed with diesel fuel. Sarah noticed Rex's subtle alert signal, a specific way he positioned his body and focused his attention, that they had practiced hundreds of times. To any passerby, he just looked like a police dog observing his surroundings. But to Sarah, it was clear: Rex had detected explosives. "Easy, Rex," she murmured, her hand instinctively moving to her radio. But she needed to be smart about this. If there really was a threat, causing a panic could make the situation exponentially worse. She needed to identify the source without alerting potential suspects. They moved casually through the crowd, Sarah pretending to conduct a routine patrol while Rex's nose led them through the maze of travelers. Past the Starbucks where a long line of customers waited for their morning caffeine fix. Past the newsstand where an elderly man was reading headlines about the latest political developments. Past the shoeshine station where a businessman was getting his Oxfords polished to perfection. Rex's intensity increased as they approached Track 3, where a regional train to Detroit was preparing to depart. The scent was getting stronger. Sarah's training told her to call for backup immediately, but something made her hesitate. She needed to be certain before potentially shutting down one of the busiest transportation hubs in the Midwest. Then she saw him. A man in his late 20s, wearing a dark jacket despite the warm autumn day, stood near the platform entrance. His behavior immediately caught Sarah's attention. He was sweating profusely. His eyes darted nervously around the terminal, and he kept checking his phone every few seconds. Most tellingly, he was carrying a large duffel bag that he held protectively close to his body. Rex's alert became more pronounced as they got closer. There was no doubt now, the explosives were in that bag. Ahmed Hassan had been planning this moment for 8 months. The 27-year-old had been radicalized through online forums after losing his job and falling into a deep depression following his father's death. What started as anger at the world had been carefully cultivated by handlers overseas, who fed him a steady diet of extremist ideology and convinced him that this act would give his life meaning. The bomb in his duffel bag was relatively simple but effective: 15 pounds of ammonium nitrate packed around a timer device, with metal fragments added to maximize casualties. His plan was to board the 8:45 a.m. train to Detroit, place the bag in the luggage compartment, and get off at the first stop before the device detonated as the train approached the busy downtown Detroit station. But Ahmed was nervous. This was his first and only mission, and despite months of mental preparation, the reality of what he was about to do was overwhelming. His hands shook as he checked his phone for the third time in 2 minutes. The message from his handler was clear: "Today is the day. Make us proud." He tried to blend in with the other passengers, but his behavior was anything but normal. He had barely slept in 3 days, and the weight of the explosive device made the duffel bag awkward to carry. Every police officer in the station looked like a threat. Every security camera seemed to be focused on him. When Ahmed saw the policewoman, with the German Shepherd walking in his direction, His heart rate spiked. But they seemed to be conducting a routine patrol, just walking through the crowd. He forced himself to look away, to act normal, to think about anything other than the deadly cargo in his bag. He didn't notice that the dog had stopped, its nose raised high in the air. He didn't see the subtle change in the officer's posture, or the way she began moving more deliberately through the crowd. Ahmed was so focused on his own nervousness that he missed all the signs that his carefully planned attack was about to be discovered. The PA system crackled to life. Attention passengers, the 8:45 a.m. service to Detroit will begin boarding at Track 3 in 5 minutes. Please have your tickets ready. Ahmed took a deep breath. It was time. Sarah's police training ward with her instinct to act immediately. She had identified a likely suspect carrying what Rex's nose insisted were explosives. But she needed to handle this situation perfectly. One wrong move could result in casualties, or worse, the detonation of whatever device the man was carrying. She activated her radio with a subtle gesture, speaking in the calm, professional tone that years of training had ingrained in her. Dispatch, this is Unit 47 at Union Station. I need immediate backup at Track 3. 10-33 situation. The code for a bomb threat would bring every available unit rushing to her location without broadcasting the specific nature of the emergency over public radio. Channels. Rex remained focused on the suspect, who was now moving toward the boarding area for the Detroit train. Sarah could see other passengers beginning to line up. Families with children, elderly couples, business travelers, all of them completely unaware of the danger in their midst. Unit 47. Backup is en route. 8 to 3 minutes, came the crackling response through her earpiece. 3 minutes felt like an eternity. The suspect could board the train, disappear into the crowd, or worse, trigger whatever device he was carrying. Sarah made a decision that went against protocol but felt absolutely right in the moment. She began moving closer, using Rex as her guide. The German Shepherd's training was impeccable. He maintained his alert posture without becoming aggressive or obvious. To any observer, they still looked like a routine patrol team, but Rex's body language told Sarah everything she needed to know. The explosives were definitely in that duffel bag, and they were getting closer. Ahmed was now third in line to board the train. Sarah could see his hands shaking as he fumbled with his ticket. Sweat stained his jacket despite the comfortable temperature in the station. His behavior was becoming more erratic by the second, and Sarah realized that he might be close to panic, a dangerous state for someone carrying explosives. She needed to act. Backup or no backup, sir? Sarah called out, her voice friendly but authoritative. Could I speak with you for a moment? Ahmed's blood turned to ice. The policewoman with the dog was walking directly toward him, and there was something in her expression that suggested this wasn't a casual encounter. His handler had warned him about this possibility, told him that if he was discovered, he should trigger the device immediately rather than allow himself to be captured. His right hand moved instinctively toward the zipper of his duffel bag, where the detonator was easily accessible. But as he turned to face the approaching officer, Rex did something that neither his training nor his natural instincts had prepared him for. The German Shepherd lunged forward, not aggressively, but with the sudden movement of a dog that had spotted something interesting. Ahmed jerked backward in surprise, stumbling slightly and dropping his grip on the bag. The movement was enough to break his focus, to snap him out of the tunnel vision that had been building toward triggering the device. Easy there, Sarah said, grabbing Rex's leash while keeping her eyes fixed on Ahmed. He's just being friendly. Beautiful morning, isn't it? Rex's behavior wasn't random. His training included not just detection, but also disruption techniques designed to break a suspect's concentration at crucial moments. The dog had sensed the man's rising panic and acted to interrupt whatever he was planning to do. Ahmed found himself nodding stupidly at the officer's comment about the weather. The moment of confusion had broken his deadly focus, and now he was face to face with a police officer and her very alert German Shepherd. His hand was still near the duffel bag, but the immediate impulse to detonate had passed. I'm Detective Mitchell with the Transit Authority Police, Sarah said, her tone still conversational but her posture ready for action. I don't think we've met. Are you traveling somewhere today? Other passengers in the boarding line were beginning to notice the interaction, but not with alarm yet. Sarah's casual approach was keeping the situation from escalating into panic, but she could see in Ahmed's eyes that he was calculating his options. Rex had positioned himself strategically, close enough to act if needed, but not so close as to appear threatening. His nose continued to work, confirming what they both already knew. This man was carrying enough explosives to kill dozens of people. Ahmed's mind raced through his limited options. The police officer seemed friendly enough, but the intelligent eyes of her German Shepherd told a different story. The dog knew. Somehow, impossibly, this animal had detected what he was carrying. I'm going to visit my sister in Detroit, Ahmed managed to say, his voice slightly hoarse. Family emergency. Sarah nodded sympathetically, while her trained eyes took in every detail of his appearance and behavior. The excessive sweating, the way he held the bag, the slight tremor in his hands, everything pointed to extreme stress that went far beyond normal travel. anxiety. "I'm sorry to hear about the emergency," she said. "Is there anything we can do to help? The station has services for travelers dealing with difficult situations." It was a brilliant approach. By offering help instead of making accusations, Sarah was keeping Ahmed talking while backup arrived. But she could see him glancing toward the train, calculating distances. Looking for escape routes, Rex's ears perked up as he heard the subtle sound of multiple sets of footsteps approaching from different directions. Sarah's backup was arriving, moving into position around the platform without making their presence obvious to the growing crowd of passengers. Ahmed noticed the change in the dog's posture and felt a new wave of panic. His training kicked in. His handlers had been very clear about what to do if capture seemed imminent. His hand moved again toward the zipper of his duffel bag, this time with more determination. But Rex was faster. The German Shepherd suddenly barked once, sharply, a sound that cut through the ambient noise of the train station like a gunshot. It wasn't an aggressive bark, but it was loud enough and sharp enough to startle everyone within 30 feet, including Ahmed. The involuntary flinch that followed the bark caused Ahmed to stumble backward again, his concentration broken for the second time. In that moment of confusion, Sarah saw her opportunity. "Rex, come," Sarah commanded, and the German Shepherd immediately moved to her side, his body still alert but no longer directly focused on Ahmed. It was a tactical repositioning that looked natural but gave Sarah a better angle to observe the suspect while appearing to de-escalate the situation. Ahmed's breathing was becoming more labored. He could see other police officers now, positioned at various points around the platform, trying to look casual but clearly coordinating their movements. He was surrounded, and the realization was pushing him toward the desperate action his handlers had drilled into him. "Sir, you seem distressed," Sarah said, taking a small step forward. "Are you feeling all right? Would you like to sit down for a moment?" It was then that Ahmed made his fatal mistake. Instead of responding to Sarah's question, he looked directly at Rex. The German Shepherd's intense brown eyes seemed to look right through him. And in that moment of eye contact, Ahmed became convinced that the dog could somehow see into his soul, could see the evil he was about to commit. His nerve broke. "I can't do this," he whispered, so quietly that only Sarah could hear him. The duffel bag slipped from his suddenly nerveless fingers and hit the marble floor with a dull thud. The sound made every nearby police officer tense. But Sarah raised her hand slightly, a signal to hold position. Rex's tail wagged once, as if he understood that something fundamental had just changed in the situation. "Can't do what?" Sarah asked gently, stepping closer but keeping her hands visible and non-threatening. Ahmed looked around at the innocent faces of the other passengers, a mother helping her young daughter with a backpack, an elderly couple sharing a newspaper, a businessman talking quietly on his phone. These weren't the faceless enemies his handlers had described. They were just people, trying to get through their day, trying to get home to their families. "I'm not a killer," Ahmed said, louder this time. "I thought I was, but I'm not a killer." The words hung in the air for a moment before Sarah responded. "That's good," she said simply. "Being a killer is a choice, and you're making a different choice." Rex moved slightly closer to the abandoned duffel bag, his nose confirming what they all suspected about its contents. But his posture had relaxed somewhat. The immediate threat of detonation seemed to have passed. Asterisk. What happened next would be discussed in law enforcement training seminars for years to come. Ahmed Hassan, faced with the reality of what he was about to do and somehow broken out of his extremist mindset by the simple presence of a police dog, began to talk. "There's a bomb in the bag," he said, his voice steady now that the decision had been made. 15 pounds of ammonium nitrate with a timer device. I was supposed to put it on the train and get off at the first stop. Sarah felt her heart skip a beat, but her training kept her voice calm. "Where's the detonator?" "Ahmed." He looked surprised that she knew his name, then remembered that in his nervousness, he had probably revealed more than he intended. "In the side pocket of the bag, but I haven't armed it. I couldn't." When I saw all these people, The backup officers were now moving closer, but still maintaining the casual appearance that had kept the situation from becoming a public panic. Sarah could see Detective Rodriguez approaching from the left, Officer Chen from the right, and Lieutenant Morrison coordinating from near the information booth. "Ahmed, I need you to slowly step away from the bag and put your hands where I can see them," Sarah said. "Rex here is going to help us make sure everyone stays safe." As if responding to his name, Rex moved to position himself between Ahmed and the duffel bag, effectively cutting off any possibility of the suspect changing his mind and reaching for the device. But the dog's posture was no longer that of an animal preparing for action. It was more like a guardian, protecting everyone in the area from a danger that was now under control. Ahmed raised his hands slowly, tears beginning to stream down his face. "I'm sorry," he said, looking at the other passengers who were still mostly unaware of what had just been prevented. "I'm so sorry." The transformation was remarkable. The nervous, sweating potential terrorist had become a broken young man who was finally seeing clearly what he had almost done. Sarah couldn't help but wonder what had changed, what had broken through the months of radicalization and hatred that had brought him to this moment. Later, she would realize it was Rex who had made the difference, not through aggression or intimidation, but through his simple presence as a creature who existed without hatred, without politics, without the twisted ideology that had nearly turned Ahmed into a mass murderer. The arrest itself was anticlimactic. Ahmed offered no resistance as Detective Rodriguez moved in to place him in handcuffs. He seemed almost relieved to have the decision taken away from him, to no longer be carrying the terrible weight of what he had planned to do. Lieutenant Morrison coordinated the evacuation of the immediate area while the bomb squad was called in to deal with the explosive device. The other passengers were told there was a security situation that required them to move to a different part of the station, but the word bomb was carefully avoided to prevent panic. Rex remained focused on the duffel bag until the bomb squad arrived, as if he understood that his job wasn't finished until the explosive device was safely removed. His training had taught him to stay alert to dangerous substances until they were no longer a threat, and he took that responsibility seriously. "Good boy," Sarah whispered, scratching behind his ears as they watched the bomb squad's robot carefully approach the abandoned bag. "Very good boy." The device was exactly as Ahmed had described, a relatively simple but an effective bomb that would have killed dozens of people and injured many more. The timer hadn't been activated, which meant that Ahmed's change of heart had come before he had taken the final, irreversible step. As the bomb squad worked, Ahmed sat in the back of a police car, still talking. The words poured out of him as if he had been holding them back for months. His anger after his father's death, his isolation and depression, the online forums that had gradually filled his mind with hatred, the handlers who had convinced him that violence was the answer to his pain. "I kept thinking about my father," he told Detective Rodriguez during his initial interview. "He would have been so ashamed of what I was about to do. He came to this country because he believed in America, believed in the possibility of a better life. And I was about to, double quotes." Rodriguez nodded, having seen this kind of delayed shock reaction before. The human mind wasn't designed to contemplate mass murder, and when people were pulled back from that brink, the psychological impact was often overwhelming. In the days that followed, the FBI investigation revealed the full scope of the plot. Ahmed's handlers, operating from overseas, had been monitoring his progress and were expecting confirmation of the attack. When news broke that he had been arrested with an unexploded device, they immediately began covering their tracks and cutting ties with other potential recruits. Ahmed's cooperation was extensive. He provided investigators with chat logs, email addresses, financial records, and detailed information about the recruitment and radicalization process he had undergone. His intelligence proved invaluable in tracking down other potential threats and understanding how terrorist organizations were adapting their recruitment methods for online environments. "He's genuinely remorseful," Agent Sarah Chen from the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force told Detective Mitchell during one of their coordination meetings. "That doesn't excuse what he planned to do, but it's clear that something fundamental changed in his thinking at the last moment." Sarah looked over at Rex, who was lying contentedly in a sunny spot near the window of the police station briefing room. "I think it was Rex who changed his mind." Agent Chen raised an eyebrow. "The dog." "Not directly," Sarah explained, "but Rex detected the explosives and forced us to confront Ahmed before he could get on that train. And then, when Ahmed was trying to work up the nerve to trigger the device, Rex kept disrupting his concentration. It gave Ahmed time to really see what he was about to do, to see the innocent people around him." The agent made a note in her file. "That's going to be an interesting detail for the prosecutor. A police dog who prevented a terrorist attack, not through aggression, but through, what would you call it? Compassion," Sarah said without hesitation. "Rex doesn't know anything about politics or religion or ideology. He just knows right from wrong in the most basic sense. And somehow, that simple presence was enough to break through all the hatred and programming that brought Ahmed to that moment." The story of Rex and the foiled terrorist attack spread quickly through law enforcement circles, then into the media, and eventually around the world. It became a symbol of hope in a time when terrorism seemed to dominate the headlines, proof that even in the darkest moments, simple humanity could triumph over hatred. Ahmed Hassan was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison, a relatively light sentence that reflected his cooperation and genuine remorse. In his victim impact statement, he specifically mentioned Rex. "I will never forget the moment when that dog looked at me and somehow helped me see what I was really about to do. He saved my life as much as he saved the lives of all those innocent people." Rex, for his part, seemed largely unaware of his celebrity status. He continued his daily patrols at Union Station, his nose constantly working, his brown eyes alert for any sign of danger. But Sarah noticed that he had developed a special fondness for interacting with travelers, especially children, who were invariably delighted to meet a real police dog, the German Shepherds. Training had prepared him to detect explosives, to alert his handler to potential threats, and to assist in law enforcement operations. But no training program could have prepared him for the role he played that September morning as an unwitting instrument of redemption, a living reminder of the fundamental goodness that exists in the world even in the face of evil. Detective Sarah Mitchell was promoted to sergeant and became the department's lead instructor for K-9 units. She traveled around the country, teaching other officers about the unique partnership between humans and dogs in law enforcement. But the lesson she emphasized most wasn't about training techniques or tactical procedures. Dogs don't lie, she would tell her students. They don't have hidden agendas or political motivations. They just respond to what they sense in the world around them. Sometimes, that simple honesty is exactly what a situation needs. The prevented attack had consequences that extended far beyond Union Station. Ahmed's intelligence led to the disruption of 3 other planned attacks across the United States and the arrest of 2 recruiting networks that had been operating through social media platforms. More importantly, Ahmed's story began to be used in counter-radicalization programs. His detailed account of how he had been recruited and manipulated became a powerful tool for helping other young people recognize and resist extremist messaging. I want people to understand that terrorists aren't born. They're made, Ahmed said during a recorded interview that was later used in educational programs. And if they can be made, they can be unmade. It just takes the right moment, the right intervention, the right reminder of what we're really fighting for. Rex's role in the story became a touchstone for discussions about the importance of law enforcement's connection to the communities they serve. The dog's presence hadn't just detected a threat, it had humanized the situation in a way that allowed for a peaceful resolution. Law enforcement agencies across the country began incorporating more community engagement into their canine programs. Dogs like Rex started making regular visits to schools, community centers, and public events, building positive relationships that made their crime-fighting work more effective. When people see Rex as a friend instead of just an authority figure, Sergeant Mitchell explained, they're more likely to cooperate when we really need their help. That dog has prevented more crimes than we'll ever know, just by being approachable and trustworthy. Dr. Maria Santos, a canine behavior specialist at the University of Chicago, studied Rex's actions during the terrorist incident as part of her research into the emotional intelligence of working dogs. Her findings were published in the Journal of Applied Animal Behavior and became a landmark paper in the field. What Rex demonstrated that day goes beyond simple training, Dr. Santos explained. He was reading micro-expressions, body language, stress hormones, and emotional states in a way that allowed him to respond not just to the explosive materials, but to the human crisis that was unfolding. According to Dr. Santos' research, Rex had exhibited what she termed empathetic intervention, the ability to sense when a human was in extreme distress and to take actions designed to reduce that distress rather than simply respond to the immediate threat. When Rex disrupted Ahmed's concentration at crucial moments, he wasn't following a specific training protocol, she noted. He was responding to the man's emotional state and acting to prevent what he somehow sensed would be a catastrophic outcome for everyone involved. The research had practical applications beyond law enforcement. Therapy dogs, service animals, and even household pets could be trained to recognize and respond to human emotional crises in ways that could prevent violence, self-harm, or other dangerous behaviors. Rex, completely unaware that he had become the subject of academic study, continued his daily work with the same steady focus and gentle demeanor that had made him such an effective partner for Sergeant Mitchell. 5 years after the incident at Union Station, Ahmed Hassan was released from federal prison, having served his full sentence with exemplary behavior. He had used his time incarcerated to earn a bachelor's degree in social work and had become a leading voice in counter-extremism efforts within the prison system. His first stop as a free man was Union Station, where he had requested permission to meet Rex and Sergeant Mitchell again. The reunion was emotional and closely supervised, but it provided closure for all involved. Ahmed knelt down to pet Rex, who remembered him immediately and responded with the same gentle curiosity he had shown that September morning. "Thank you," Ahmed said simply, looking into the dog's intelligent brown eyes. "Thank you for helping me find my way back to being human." Rex's tail wagged, and he licked Ahmed's hand with the same non-judgmental affection he showed to everyone he met. To the dog, this was just another person who needed kindness. Regardless of what had happened in the past, Sergeant Mitchell watched the interaction with tears in her eyes. "I've seen Rex save lives by detecting bombs and drugs," she said later, "but that day he saved a soul." Ahmed went on to work with federal agencies in developing better counter-radicalization programs, always emphasizing the moment when Rex had helped him see past his hatred to the humanity of the people around him. "Evil is learned," he would tell audiences of young people who were at risk of extremist recruitment, "but so is compassion. And sometimes, all it takes is one moment of clarity, one reminder of who we really are, to change everything." Rex retired from active duty at the age of 10, having served 6 distinguished years with the Chicago Transit Authority Police. His career record included the detection of dozens of explosive devices during training exercises, several drug busts, and countless positive community interactions. But he would always be remembered most for that Tuesday morning in September when he helped prevent a terrorist attack not through force or aggression, but through the simple power of presence and the unwitting ability to remind a lost young man of his own humanity. The German Shepherd spent his retirement years living with Sergeant Mitchell and her family, making occasional appearances at schools and community events where children delighted in hearing the story of the police dog who stopped a bad guy just by being a good dog. Ahmed Hassan's transformation became one of the most documented cases of successful de-radicalization in modern law enforcement history. His cooperation had prevented multiple attacks, and his ongoing work in counter-extremism had helped dozens of other young people step back from the brink of violence. But both men, the former terrorist and the police officer who arrested him, would always credit Rex with making the real difference. The dog who couldn't understand ideology or politics, but who understood, with perfect clarity, the difference between protecting life and destroying it. In the end, that may have been the most important lesson of all. Sometimes, the most complex problems require the simplest solutions. Sometimes, the most profound interventions come from the most unexpected sources. And sometimes, the best way to fight hatred is not with force, but with the quiet, steady presence of unconditional love. Rex never knew he was a hero. To him, he was just doing his job, protecting the people in his care, and responding to the world with the honesty and compassion that comes naturally to dogs. But in a world too often dominated by fear and division, that simple goodness was exactly what was needed. The bronze statue of Rex that now stands in Union Station bears a simple inscription, in recognition of faithful service and the reminder that even in our darkest moments, hope and humanity can prevail. Every day, thousands of commuters pass by that statue as they hurry through the station. Most don't know the full story of what happened there on that September morning, but those who do often pause for a moment, remembering that sometimes the most important heroes walk on four legs and see the world through eyes unclouded by anything but love. This story, while fictional, is dedicated to the countless working dogs and their handlers who serve in law enforcement, the military, and emergency services around the world. Their courage, dedication, and the special bond between human and canine partners continues to make our communities safer and more compassionate places to live.